Greetings again everybody and welcome back to Dark Souls 3. Today we're going into the dungeon. Now this is that bonfire right by that part where the Beast of Darkness attacked us. Beast of Darkness being, of course, those little berserk looking wolf alligator hybrids. And also where the spider cave is, with these super weird enemies. No spiders today, though. Instead, we'll get something much worse. We'll see. For now, though, it's just the regular old stuff, like those guys here. And we could have walked down the stairs as well, but that would have made us so, you know, we can get attacked and ambushed rather easy. Why, there's really no item for us to get up there. Nothing worthwhile. And if you do it like this, we only have to deal with this one fire witch here. Which on its own, of course, is rather simple to defeat. Up there are two Pontiff Knights. You can see one of them here. And we just basically avoided those by, you know, jumping down there. There's also some more of those half-invisible hollows. Now we could see that part from up there pretty much, because that's where we fought that Beast of Darkness. And we get invaded by an NPC phantom called Alva, which is a reference to Dark Souls 2. In Dark Souls 2 there was an armor set called Alva's set. It looked exactly like what he's wearing, only with less of a red glow. It was probably one of my favorite sets from that game. And the story with Alva was basically, for some reason, he hated witches, but then he helped the witch eventually, or something, I don't know. I don't remember the specifics. But they are, well, I wouldn't say relevant for this game, but there's also a bit of a nod to it here. And down there is, of course, only death. Well, let's head into the dungeon proper, because this is the actual entrance. And it is an area that I quite enjoy, though. I also hate it, but I enjoy it. I like it, and I don't like it at the same time. It's a weird kind of relationship. It's an incredibly well-designed area, but there's things in it that make me want to not like it, but I can't help it. Anyway, enough about my weird relationship. And oh yeah, jump scares, jump scares, jump scares. That was a jump scare. Anyway, enough about my my feelings about this area, or rather the contradictory ones. I'll just focus on what's at hand for the most part here. This dungeon is a prison, almost like the Towers of Latria. It is very reminiscent of that area from Demon Souls in more than just one way. And we will actually find several locked cells, which we can't open yet until we find a key, of course. And much like in the Tower of Latria, there's this ominous step in the background thing going on. And if I may direct your attention to the top left, you might see, oh, my health is really low. What is this? Did I respec and just not put any points into Vigor? No, I didn't. That's not what I did. Those enemies, those jailers, they are a bit reminiscent of the Cthulhu jails of Tower of Latria for what that matters, but they are, of course, not really similar in the visual sense, except for the fact that they're wearing robes. But they are very dangerous. In fact, those are much more dangerous than those, because you can see my health, right? They are doing that. They're doing that. And I hate that they're doing that. Funnily enough, my first time through this area, I really didn't catch on to them doing that or my health going lower for a long time. And eventually, I just looked to the top left to check my health, because I didn't take any hits for a good bit. Because I played very cautiously on my first playthroughs. Now you can see, of course, I'm a bit more reckless, because I know what's ahead. Yeah, I know that jump scare. But yeah, you can see that I'm a bit more reckless, because I know what's ahead. So I know what to worry, not to worry about. And I know the only thing to really worry about is those jailers, because if they lower your health and they hit you, you're probably gonna die, because their combo is quite devastating. I'm not even sure we'll be seeing it in this run, but you can see it in the New Game Plus run. And here's some returning friends. They are, of course, only dangerous if you don't see them coming. And if you just go through here not expecting anything, you might as well not expect them. And those guys too. I knew he was there, actually. I just thought I could get that item and turn around to kill him in time. To create a great moment for the LP. Where I find this item, turn around, and oh no, there he is. But instead that happened, which is fine. I'll take it. Overall, this area is quite dangerous for the reasons that you by now are aware of. And it also makes it very exciting, especially on the first round, because it's pretty much an adventure. You're going through it and oh shit, those guys. Those weird jailer assholes. Because at first you might, if you notice it, unlike me, which I didn't notice it, if you notice it happening, you might be worried that it's permanent. Which is laughable, of course. Like, not even Miyazaki is a dick big enough to do something like permanently lower your health forever. At least not without a chance of getting it back eventually. I mean, because he did do that with Curse in Dark Souls 1, but that was a different story, okay? And also with Demon Souls, where your health got halved by just dying. But that, of course, is also a different thing. And now we did everything we could down there, for the time being at least, and we're back up. Just in case you got lost due to my editing there. Because now we're actually going to the other side of this big central area of this place. And that guy over there is an asshole. And I can't even go the other way. So here's the best thing to do. By the way, they breathe this weird fog at you. But I could look it up probably, but I have no idea what it does. So whatever it does, it's not a problem. Because what actually does cause your health to go low is them just looking at you. And looking away from them, or turning the camera away from them, doesn't necessarily work either. It's just really evil. But if you get a chance, of course, to take out one of those jailers, do it as quickly as possible. Try to ambush them. In general, unfortunately, the game does not really give you many opportunities to do so. Though usually they are patrolling and you might be able to get in behind them. It's, they are also placed a devious way, and what's this? Ah, I've seen worse today. There was no real reason for us actually hurting that guy, because he wouldn't do anything ever, no matter what. He's just completely docile. He will not do anything. Never. So at least next time we won't have to deal with that one enemy anymore. That's basically all this shortcut does. It lets us bypass that one enemy. Of course, well, technically, if you just look down there when I look down, there is another door. It will allow us to reach that door much more quickly, because that's also a shortcut. This area is, if you will, shortcuts on top of shortcuts. And here we come back to my preferred strategy of taking those guys out as quickly as possible. And then of course missing. This is actually one of the most evil rooms in this area. Well, one of the, of course. I say that very specifically because we'll see, we'll see. Anyway, you could just also run through that room. And if you have that shortcut unlocked, or rather, yeah, if you have a shortcut unlocked, you could just walk past the upper part, pass from the upper part, and then drop down here somewhere. And there is actually one other thing that I will want. One more shortcut, if you will. But to actually unlock that, I will need a key. Which I believe, at this point, I have missed. Because remember that one room with the 3 jailers inside it? Yeah, in the upper part of that area, there is actually a cell with a key inside it, and we just didn't go there. And since that key unlocks a spot where we can get some items, we'll of course want it. But before we go back and get it, let's just kill those enemies here. If it weren't for the items, though, I probably wouldn't even bother with that shortcut, because it's not very useful unless you really have trouble with this part of the area. Which I wouldn't expect in the normal circumstances. I mean, there's some stuff that could be considered tough, but overall this next part is simpler, mainly because there's no jailers anymore. For a while at least. We'll see them again soon enough, trust me. But anyway, let's head back up, because we gotta do what we gotta do. So here's the room with the 3 jailers. They're already dead, of course, because we've been here. And while I did look down here to show that, hey, there's another door we can't open, I completely ignored the fact that there is a door here. This jailbreaker's key kind of has a description that hints at, well, the sadistic nature of the jailers here, because there is a door that would only lead to a fall to the death. However, that fall is not quite as deadly, which is why it is useful as a shortcut for us. And of course to, as already alluded to, give us some items. Because this here is far from a fall to the death. It would be suitable, you know, to actually escape the thing. The Bellowing Dragon Crest Ring actually increases the power of sorceries. Considerably, I might add. It's the stronger variant. Here we have a Mimic. Now, what I didn't show yet is that if we throw a Lloyd's Talisman or a Undead Hunter Charm, as it's called in this game, at it, the Mimic will just straight up open. But there is something extra to it in this game. Because what you can do is just attack it, you know, and it'll just go to sleep again, you know. Or it'll wake up and lock again, is the thing. But you can just do this again, and you might be able to actually get a symbol of avarice that way. I think what you're supposed to do is to wait to see if there's another item inside. But I basically just like to kill it. So if you for some reason really have trouble with mimics or want a symbol of avarice, this is a good way to do it. And I'm pretty sure that this growling, snoring sound is familiar to you at this point. Because we did hear it before in the Cathedral of the Deep. More specifically, we heard it in the room with the two huge giants. Mainly because that is a giant that we can hear just now. And that giant is blocking off part of this area unless we want to attack him. But for right now, there's no much point of doing that. This room here can be tricky, of course. Like, you just saw me go through it, kind of. But there's a lot of enemies. The thing is that all of those enemies are relatively easy to defeat, and it will be very possible to attack multiple of them at the same time. We could have dropped down where I just was for much of the same effect of what we're doing now, but why drop if you can do this the official way? And there he is. So if you had dropped down from that window, we would have landed up there. If we felt we could attack the giant, but why? Why do that at this point? There is a crystal lizard. I think one on his left side and one actually between his two arms. Or maybe it's just one and I'm confusing them. But whatever. For the time being, let's just drop down here. We could have also dropped down at the very first window, which would have put us right where the torch up there is, or relatively close to it anyway. Well, last time we entered sewers, we also had to contend with rats. Though there were also quite the big ones. And dodge rolling here is very, very dangerous. In case you didn't notice, I almost died there. Not because those rats are dangerous, but because gravity is. So yeah, this is where we would have landed had we dropped earlier. And yeah, it is just one crystal lizard, but really, he's a trap. You're supposed to go for him and attack the giant and wake him, and then this room will not be as peaceful as it is right now. We'll be back for the giant later though, but for now, we just really shouldn't do that. Because unless you want to make life much harder on you, there's no reason to do so. Now, if you listen carefully here, you'll be able to hear a familiar sound. Yeah, that one. This is the sound that basilisks make, so somewhere here are basilisks. This is your warning. This is also how you're rewarded for being perceptive and paying attention. And indeed, both of those chests are mimics. Rather, one of them is. I misremembered. But anyway, soon as you open that chest, those basilisks will drop, and there's quite a few of them. But much like when we went through the Farron Swamp, same rules apply. They're not really too dangerous, because you can just kill them relatively easily. Obviously, don't stand in the middle of their cloud. They're more dangerous here in these tight quarters than they were in the swamp, where you could easily just get away from their clouds. But generally, just kill them. They are very vulnerable when they actually go to inhale to breathe out their curse gas. Because it does take a while for them to do it. And I could have sworn that one was dead, but he wasn't. Now to deal with that mimic. Since we have some more undead hunter charms, why not use them? I mean, I wouldn't really use them for anything else anyway. And this Dark Clutch Ring would actually grant us a bit of dark damage to our weapon if we equip it. But I don't really like those rings that add some elemental damage. It's usually not worth it, in my opinion at least. Might be for some specific builds though. Especially in PvP, different rules apply. I mean, the rules of the game are the same, but you would use some equipment that you wouldn't use otherwise. And of course, big rats. I mean, I see plural here, but there's only one here. Oh wait, no. Thankfully, those as well are relatively simple. But now, we're done with simple. Because we hear those footsteps again, and those footsteps, they warn us of a very specific enemy in this area. Or 12. I don't know if it's 12. It's probably much less. More like 9 or 8 or something. I didn't count ever, but before you do that, go the other way. This is one more example of Dark Souls showing you a tough challenge that you know is probably gonna kill you to direct you the other way. Because if you go here, well, it's quite nice. Mainly because there is a shortcut here. And that spot we just walked past, by the way. We had this kind of vista to the mountains. It's gonna be important later, like much later. Not in this video later, but not even in the next 3 or 4 videos later, but much later. Alright, so yeah, this part is what I'm talking about. We'll see though, don't worry. But now it is time to deal with this. There is no proper boss fight in the dungeon, but if you ask me, this room is the boss fight. However, you could just run through it if you wanted to and just bypass it completely. Which is a luxury that you don't really have with any actual boss fights, because you're locked into the room until they're dead. But I find that this route I'm taking to be the simplest. However, the approach I'm taking may not be the best. Because you can't actually get through this room without fighting any of those jailers, because those jailers, well, there are a lot. And one of them is already dangerous and can kill you easily. So many, yeah. And one of them noticed me, of course. Anyway, here's a mimic. Let's walk past it. Now, there is something I could have done with that mimic. It would have been a bit useful to us, but I didn't go for it. Mainly because if you attack that mimic, or rather wake it up... Jump scare, jump scare. I should warn you beforehand. Anyway, mimic... If you attack the mimic, or wake it up rather, it will actually attack those guys as well. Making this room rather simple. There is one more enemy, somewhere, that you can actually sick on those guys as well. It's in the cell opposite of us, but we'd have to get over there and open the cell first. And it's not all that useful anyway. However, just hurting them in here and just funneling them by the door here, that actually seems to work out fine. Sometimes. Sometimes, at least. Ah, well. Let's not actually use that mimic to our advantage, because I'm an idiot. And instead, let's show off getting eaten by a mimic. Glad I demoed that. Anyway, let's still not use that mimic to our advantage, because I'm an idiot, and I'm gonna kill it instead. It didn't occur to me that the mimic would also be a helpful asset in this fight. But hey, we did get our symbol of avarice, finally. It really would be a much better idea, of course, to just attack that mimic once and then run just kind of in the middle of those guys to make it attack those guys. Because it will do that. In addition to that other enemy. This is kind of awkward. Oh yeah, if those guys don't notice you for a while, they will of course retreat. And this is not a very slow way to do it. At this point, I wouldn't really have to go through this room. I'm making this more difficult than it should be. Now, it might even be a better idea to fight them out in the open, but since their attacks actually slow you down as well, it's not so good to fight multiple of them at the same time. And yes, there's that enemy. It's one of those crucified hollows from the Crucifixion Woods. And you can take out one or two of those guys. But he's not strong enough to wipe them all out on his own. I mean, I suppose with a bit of luck he could. But much like us, he's no match for several of their attacks at the same time. Oh, speak of the devil. Anyway, let's just not bother anymore. Just collect the items here and run through the room. We got Alva set there. Keep that in mind. Because it is, I believe, somewhat relevant. Later, though. And this is how you're supposed to deal with that room. Or, well, it's the most efficient way, because fighting those guys again is just not really gonna be worth it most of the time. Though, sometimes you might want to kill them. But you don't have to. Be aware of that, you really don't have to. But for now, it seems that we're actually out of the dungeon. And that is, of course, an enemy. So these gargoyles will be a pain if you fight them on this bridge. In general, and a lot of players seem to forget this, it's better to fight an enemy in a place where you can dodge easily. Especially if that enemy is as agile as that one. I mean, I suppose if you have an enemy that's really dodgy and fast, it can be good to also fight them in close quarters, but this will also limit your ways of avoiding damage to just blocking. They can put their wing up to actually block a lot of damage, and as far as I know, they will damage from all directions. Meaning that if they do it, you just kind of have to wait. And that flame down there is, of course, gonna be significant, but for the time being, we're not gonna go there. Because we're just about to take a bit of a break. As there is a bonfire nearby. And there's also another path if we just, you know, jump through a hole down here, which we'll do in the next video. We'll be reaching a whole different part of the dungeon. For now, I want you to look at this guy down there. He might seem familiar He is Gilligan from Dark Souls 2, and there's also ladders here. He was the laddersmith. He was a bit of a dick, but, you know. Visions of Ladder. Ah, well. Let's take a rest for now, though. Next time we'll be exploring the rest of the dungeon. See ya then.